Hello, welcome to this lecture on institutional mechanisms for minority protection. India's constitution not only gives different kinds of rights and special directives to the state under DPSPs for the minorities protection, but it also ensures equality and real inclusion through active institutions. To make rights effective, the state created administrative and statutory bodies that monitor and protect minority interests. Institutional mechanisms such as the National Commission for Minorities, NCM, the National Commission for Minority Educational Institutions, NCME, and the Ministry of Minority Affairs, MOMA, serve as guardians of constitutional promises for the minorities. They convert abstract rights into practical safeguards by overseeing implementation, resolving grievances, and advising the government. These institutions promote education, employment, and participation amongst religious and linguistic minority. The NCM, established under the 1992 Act, investigates complaints of discrimination and monitor welfare schemes. The NCMEI, set up in 2004, protects the educational autonomy of minority institutions. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Minority Affairs formulates policies for empowerment and inclusion. Together, they create a multi layered system linking law, policy, and community representation. Their strength lies in advocacy and oversight, their weakness often in limited enforcement powers. Yet they symbolize India's continuing efforts to transform constitutional equality into everyday justice and dignity for minorities across the nation. The historical context of minority institutional protection for minorities developed from India's democratic experience after independence. Though the constitution guaranteed rights under Article 29 and 30, practical enforcement required dedicated bodies. Early efforts like minority cells in the state governments lacked autonomy and authority. The need for a centralized commission emerged from persistent inequalities, highlighted by reports like the Gopal Singh Committee of 1983. The committee revealed significant educational and economic gaps among Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Buddhists, and Parsis. In response, Parliament enacted the National Commission for Minorities Act 1992, giving minorities an independent forum for representation. Later, the NCMEI Act 2004 ensured institutional autonomy in education, uh, establishing the Ministry of Minority Affairs in 2006, consolidated these efforts under one administrative body. Cut. Later, the NCMEI Act 2004 ensured institutional autonomy in education, establishing the Ministry of Minority Affairs in 2006, consolidated these efforts under one administrative body. These developments reflect India's recognition that equality in a diverse democracy requires institutional activism. Over time, such mechanisms evolved from symbolic structures into dynamic agencies promoting development, harmony, and constitutional compliance. Their existence strengthens participatory governance and reflects India's moral commitment to protecting diversity within unity. The National Commission for Minorities Act 1992. The National Commission for Minorities Act 1992 was enacted to protect minority interests through statutory means. It provides for a commission composed of a chairperson, vice chairperson, and five members representing different religious communities. Initially, Muslims, Christians, Sikhs, Buddhists, and Parsis were notified as minorities. Later, Jains were added in 2014. The Act empowers the Commission to educate constitutional safeguards, monitor their implementation, and investigate complaints of deprivation of rights. It can summon witnesses, demand documents, and recommend corrective measures to the government. However, its powers are advisory, not judicial. The Commission submits annual reports to Parliament through the Ministry of Minority Affairs. By ensuring dialogue between state and society, the NCM acts as both watchdog and bridge. It highlights issues like education, employment, and communal harmony. Despite limitations in enforcement, the NCM's moral authority and constitutional legitimacy make it a key institution in ensuring that minority rights are not merely declaratory but functionally realized in governance. The National Commission for Minorities consists of a chairperson, vice chairperson, and five members appointed by the central government. Representation across major minority communities ensures inclusivity. Under the 1992 Act, the Commission has the power to investigate, monitor, and advise the government on matters affecting minorities. It can summon officials, require information, and inspect records related to minority welfare. Its recommendations, though not binding, carry persuasive weight in policy making. The NCM also studies the socio-economic conditions of minorities, reviews the functioning of welfare schemes, and identifies gaps in implementation. The Commission has the status of a civil court in certain inquiries, which enhances its investigative authority. However, it lacks direct power to enforce its decisions, relying on government action. Despite this limitation, it has become an essential channel for community grievances and reform proposals. By combining advisory and investigative functions, the NCM institutionalizes the principle that justice for minorities is integral to India's democratic framework. Functions of the National Commission for Minorities. The NCM performs several critical functions aimed at ensuring equality and inclusion. It reviews the working of constitutional and legal safeguards for minorities and reports shortcomings to the government. It investigates specific complaints regarding deprivation of rights and discrimination in education, employment, and administration. The Commission also studies socioeconomic trends among minority groups and suggests measures for improvement. It engages with both central and state governments to ensure better policy coordination. Through consultations and field visits, it promotes communal harmony and awareness of constitutional values. The Commission's annual and special reports provide valuable data for policy making and academic study. Its role in advising on minority recognition and welfare program design adds legitimacy to government efforts. By acting as both a grievance redressal body and a policy advisor, the NCM transforms constitutional guarantees into living realities. It enforces the idea that minority protection is not a charity but a democratic obligation of the state. Limitations and challenges of the National Commission for Minorities. Despite its constitutional importance, the NCM faces multiple structural and operational challenges. Its powers are advisory and lack binding authority over executive decisions. Limited funding, understaffing, and bureaucratic delays weaken its functioning. Coordination with state minority commission is often inconsistent. leading to policy gaps. Many of its recommendations remain unimplemented due to political inertia. Public awareness about the NCM's role is also limited, reducing its outreach amongst the minority communities. Moreover, overlapping jurisdiction with other commissions sometimes causes confusion in grievance redressal. Judicial experts have suggested granting the NCM quasi judicial powers similar to the National Human Rights Commissions. Yet, even within these constraints, the NCM's reports and interventions have influenced national debates on education, employment, and representation. Strengthening its independence and resources is essential to ensure that it fulfills its mandate effectively. Despite limitations, the NCM continues to symbolize India's moral and constitutional commitment to equality, diversity, and minority empowerment. The National Commission for Minority Educational Institutions, NCMEI, Act 2004. The National Commission for Minority Educational Institutions, Act 2004, established a statutory body to protect the educational rights of minorities guaranteed under Article 30, Clause 1. NCMEI acts as a regulatory and quasi judicial authority with the power to grant minority status to educational institutions and address disputes. It consists of a chairperson who must be a former judge and two members. The Commission's powers include advising governments, ensuring affiliation rights, and preventing interference in minority administration. It has the authority to adjudicate grievances of educational institutions against universities or authorities denying affiliation or recognition. The NCMEI's establishment filled a critical gap in implementing Article 30, making educational autonomy practical and enforceable. Facilitating fair treatment and promoting inclusiveness in education, the NCMEI advances both equality and cultural preservation. It stands as a unique example of how legal mechanisms can secure community rights through structured, accountable, and transparent government. The powers and jurisdiction of NCMEI. The NCMEI exercises wide quasi judicial powers under the 2004 Act. It can declare an institution as minority run and issue binding directions to educational authorities. It hears appeals from institutions denied minority status or affiliation. The Commission has powers similar to a civil court in summoning, witnessing, and requiring documents. It also advises governments on policies affecting minority education. Its jurisdiction covers both religious and linguistic minorities. The NCMEI ensures that Article 30, Clause 1 remains operational, not merely symbolic. Landmark rulings by the Commission have restored recognition and autonomy to several minority institutions. However, it cannot interfere in matters beyond education or compel funding, which limits its scope. The NCMEI's quasi judicial nature bridges the gap between rights and remedies. By ensuring institutional fairness, it upholds both constitutional morality and administrative efficiency. For minorities, it is a vital instrument for protecting their educational freedom and ensuring equitable participation in national development. Ministry of Minority Affairs, Structure and Mandate. Established in 2006, the Ministry of Minority Affairs MOMA serves as the nodal body for policy formulation and implementation of minority welfare programs. Its creation followed recommendations of the Secher Committee 2006, which identified developmental gaps in education, employment, and representation. The ministry oversees schemes such as the pre metric and post metric scholarships, Nai Roshni for leadership development, and Nai Manzil for education and skill training. It coordinates with NCM, NCMEI, and state departments to ensure inclusive governance. The ministry also supervises minority financial institutions like the National Minorities Development and Finance Corporation, NMDFC. Its role is both administrative and developmental, integrating welfare and empowerment. However, challenges include overlapping responsibilities and limited evaluation mechanisms. The ministry's success depends on effective coordination and accountability. MOMA represents the government's proactive efforts to make equality real through focused, data driven, and community based policy intervention for India's minorities. The Ministry of, if we talk about the key schemes under the Ministry of Minority Affairs, then this ministry implements several major schemes to promote education, skill development, and financial inclusion. Among the most impactful are the pre metric and post metric scholarship schemes, which provide financial assistance to minority students. The Maulana Azad National Fellowship and Nai Udan programs support higher education and competitive exam preparation. Skill development initiatives such as SICO or Kamao and Nai Manzil link education with employability, while USTTAD, that is upgrading skills and training in traditional arts, crafts for development, preserves cultural heritage through livelihood generation. Economic empowerment is promoted through National Minorities Development and Finance Corporation NMFDFC, which offers microcredit and entrepreneurship support. The ministry also runs the Hamari Dharohar scheme to preserve minority heritage and art. Together, these initiatives operationalize Articles 38 and 46 of the Constitution, emphasizing social justice and equal opportunity. While challenges like fund utilization and outreach still remain, these programs collectively represent India's efforts to make constitutional morality tangible through inclusive development for every minority community. Coordination between national and state minority institutions is another important aspect. Effective minority protection depends on coordination between central and state mechanisms. Most Indian states have established state minority commissions modeled on the National Commission for Minorities to address local grievances and monitor welfare implementation. The NCM acts as a supervisory and coordinating authority, ensuring uniformity in policy. Coordinating, supervisory, and coordinating authority over the state minority commissions. The Ministry of Minority Affairs provides financial and administrative support to strengthen state level institutions. Regular intergovernmental meetings facilitate the exchange of data, best practices, and case resolutions. However, disparities in funding, staffing, and commitment often weaken the state minority commissions. Some states delay submission of reports or fail to implement recommendations. The lack of binding authority over state bodies limits the NCM's national oversight. To address this, experts recommend legislative reform for clearer accountability and periodic review by Parliament. Despite challenges, coordination mechanisms play crucial role in decentralizing protection of minority interest and minority rights. They embody cooperative federalism, turning minority rights into a shared constitutional responsibility across all levels of government. Judicial role in strengthening institutional safeguard. The judiciary has significantly strengthened the minority institutions by interpreting laws in their favor. The Supreme Court in TMA Paye Foundation versus State of Karnataka 2002 and Islamic Academy of Education versus State of Karnataka 2003 affirmed that the right to establish and administer educational institutions is fundamental under Article 30. In Bal Patil versus Union of India 2005, the court recognized the need for institutional mechanisms to prevent minority rights from becoming political tools. Courts have directed governments to ensure adequate funding and autonomy for statutory bodies like the NCM and NCMEI. Judicial review prevents arbitrary state interference in minority affairs by treating minority commission as instruments of by treating minority commissions as instruments of constitutional implementation. Courts ensure that administrative justice complements legal rights, etc. Judicial vigilance thus transforms institutional structures into uh, living guardians of secularism. It upholds the principle that equality in democracy requires constant oversight, not just from the government, but from the judiciary as the moral and legal custodian of the Constitution.